Indeed. No audio,
there we go.
Pete.
No audio, Pete.
Pete, no audio.
It's like a gig.
Yeah,
There we go. It's a good job we rehearsed
there you
this.
go. Well, I'll start again. Big welcome to everybody. Thank you very much. Make sure you tune in next week for Russell Tyke, catfish in the bottom and front of house engineer. And a massive warm welcome to Rick Pope, front of house engineer legend.
And,
you know,
I wouldn't say that. But...
well, I was reading your.
I've done a few things.
You've done a few things. I was quite surprised actually that you'd done a Living Colour, one of my favourite bands actually, which from quite a while ago.
Yeah, no,
I saw that.
Yeah, no, it was the first time I went to Japan was with them. They, I used to do an awful lot of work for these American acts in the late 80s, sort of 88, 89, and there were also these ITB acts, and they would come over. First time they'd come over, and Living Colour was one of them, and I got on really well with them, and they said go to Japan with them, so I went to Japan. Yeah, it's one of the bands that I did turn down. And I'm not really a claim to fame, but they wanted me to go to America, and they were supporting the Rolling Stones. But I was a drum tech for them, and doing monitors, and I knew that if I did that tour, I'd end up doing both jobs. And I just thought that'd be just too much to do, so I passed on it.
But you could have been double dipping there, couldn't you?
I could have done, but I just thought, you know what, I just thought I was starting out, so I just thought, no, I'm not going to do that.
Cool though, yeah. But I mean, the list of
they were a great band. Yeah, no, they were a really good band. Vernon was a great guitarist. I mean, we had the bass player was Muzz Skillings.
Muzz Skillings, yeah.
And I can't remember the others now, but yeah, it was a good tour. And Japan was great for them. This is the tour that was on there where we had a can of Coke, and the can of Coke was opened and left on the drum riser. The next day, the same can of Coke reappears on the riser. We were in a different town. And this went on for about the 3 or 4 gigs that we did. And the Japanese, that's how efficient they are. They thought it was part of the set. So they kept this can of Coke and took it around with them. So that was my first sort of into Japan, really.
Amazing.
I've heard a story about, you know, I think it was you who told me that with they used to measure absolutely everything, and if they didn't get it to the centimetre, it was a real problem, you know, when everything was being set up because of their accuracy.
They're very efficient, the Japanese. You know, we went there, you know, Jamiroquai. We went there quite a few times, and they would just keep everything. They would never throw anything away. So if you bought some new equipment from the, you know, with the cardboard boxes, you just thought that they would be skipped, you know, or thrown away, and they would just keep them. And you'd see them at the end of the, you know, after a couple of weeks, go, well, what are these? And they said, we don't throw them away. We think, you know, you want them.
Cool. But I mean, moving swiftly on, I mean, you and I talked about, you know, Santana, and you did the Nelson Mandela gig, which is
in South Africa.
I mean, that must have been something, mustn't it? You know.
Yeah, well, miking up Nelson Mandela was a bit of a challenge, because he wouldn't come for any sound check, and I knew he was quite an old and frail man. He was in his 90s then, and of course he wanted to use these lectern mics, which are renowned for being, you know, an audio guy's nightmare, especially in the stadium. And there must have been, I don't know, it was like about 80,000 people. And let's say I was shitting myself when he came on. I mean, it didn't sound very good, but you could hear it and there was no feedback. It was more like a sort of foghorn, but I got away with it.
Yeah, but I mean, from that, I mean, I was going to say because even with Jamiroquai, obviously you've been doing it for a long time, you know, and you know, I think it's probably my favourite band, but it's with that whole thing, I'm not sure how you got into it, but then you ended up doing something quite unusual for a front of house engineer, which is mixing a couple of the records as well. Yeah, no,
when I started with, I mean, I was a freelance guy, and I then in about 1987 I started working for Britannia Row, and Brit Row were, they're still a probably one of the biggest audio companies on the planet. Now they're joined with Claire's, and they had quite a big roster of bands, and I'd been out on quite a large amount of. I just did Dire Straits, and then I did a Peter Gabriel tour, and I went back to the shop and I said, look, I don't want to do any more stadium stuff. Have you got any new bands? And the girl who was in the office said, we've got this band called Jamiroquai. Do you want to do that? And it was like a little one truck tour, no flying PA, everything in, PA lights, catering all in one truck, little ground stack support, floodlight and flashlight system. I think it was about 6 boxes aside, and they were playing about 800 people. And I got on really well with Jay, and then I didn't realise how well he was doing. And the second album, I think he sold about 8 million records. So he obviously earned a load of money, because that's when records were still £15 a pop, and bands had and record companies had lots of money. Now it's like $7.99, isn't it, for a CD, if you're lucky. And then 3 months later, it was in the bargain basement. So he'd made an awful lot of money, and he bought this massive manor house, and I went along to view it with him, and he came around and said, well, look, you build a studio for me. I said, well, I've never done one, but I know a man who has, and this guy was called Al Smart, and he makes smart compressors, and I'd met him on the Gabriel tour. So anyway, we ended up building a studio there, completely new stuff that I hadn't got a clue about using, from coming from live. So I quickly had to learn how to use it, and I did all the demos, and quickly got quite proficient on it. And then I ended up doing the album, which was Funk Odyssey, which I was very privileged and lucky to do.
I'm not quite sure about this, but I think wasn't that their most successful album, Funk Odyssey?
It sold 8 million records, I think. Yeah,
or thereabouts.
Thereabouts. Yeah. So it did well, and for my first and only proper record that I've ever done, I was well chuffed. And it's quite unusual that you get live guys doing studio stuff as well. But for me, it worked out great, because when I was off the road, I would go work in the studio.
Yeah.
So I was constantly, working non-stop. And I didn't have to go out on the road so much,
What do you think the key differences were between the kind of that, how you're mixing and setting up?
The big thing for the studio was that you could put all the frequencies that you'd been taking out for all of your life on live, you could put them all back in. And it was more about mic positioning and preamps, which you don't really get to hear in some of these barns that we play at. You could hear it was definitely it was eye-opening from that point of view. But I kind of at least with a live gig, like you've got a cut-off finite point that the show is tonight, so you've got whatever happens, you've got to be ready. We're going on at 8:00, whereas in the studio you could go, we'll come back tomorrow, we're still working on the snare sound. So I kind of find that a bit sort of frustrating, really. You've got to know when to stop. But it was great to be able to do. But I think the live is, having that defined time where the show is today, which I prefer.
Excellent.
Having done the studio stuff, kind of almost to Daniel's point, did you find that brought any habits back to yourself when you were doing live again, or did you just
I think it probably. I think I ended up probably trying to get the source sound better than just and not having to take out so much EQs, which is what I'd learned from the studio stuff. So I kind of think that it became more important to get your source sounds right and working with musicians to give you the best that you can get out of them before it comes to you, and then you process it. Because if something sounds great without any processing on, your job's half done. So I would say that was my biggest thing that I learned from the studio. Plus, also you can have an awful lot more nicer mics that you can't use live, which does make a massive difference.
So, because of the studio size of desk, amount of channels that you can throw at it, and the time as well, you get a bit more time to take a breath and put mics up. What do you think in terms of multi-mic kind of things? What's your approach to multi-micing instruments? Because of course, you put like 2 mics on a cab, on a guitar cab or something.
You could have like 4 different microphones on a kick drum in the studio. I'm sort of less is more these days, really. I tried doing the more in the studio, but you can't. I do have 2 when I use Jamiroquai on the kick drum, and of course now with all the digital desks, it's so much easier to move the mics, so you can get them spot on. But in the analog days, all you could do was just flip the phase, and that was it. But now you can actually move the microphone to get right in time. But if you could do it with 1 mic, I would always go with 1 mic rather than multi mics on one particular instrument.
And that being said, do you mix in mono stereo? Do you prefer a stereo mix when you're mixing, or
how do you mean? What, in front of house? It's got to be stereo, yeah.
It's got to be stereo.
No, I wouldn't do. Yeah, no, I can't do. No, it's got to be stereo. And everyone on stage is within ears now also has stereo mixes.
Yeah, I only raised the point because of I know a lot of engineers. I've seen mixed views on that. Simply, you start getting to bigger venues, and of course, you hard pan something left. Do all the people on the right hand side of the stadium hear that particular, get that same sense? And it's interesting. It opens up a whole world of conversation with PA setups.
Well, it's funny you should say that. There's this the Acoustics have got this new thing out, haven't they? Or they've been going for some time. The Lisa. So that's an interesting concept, but it's also multi-speaker systems across the front, and you can dial in anywhere in those speakers. I went for a demo up there, and it was very interesting. I'm not sure whether it would be for every act, and I could imagine that dialing in the mix you could really get it horribly wrong, I think. And you would just need to spend an awful lot of time, because it's, you could have 7 different images of where you place stuff. But the idea is that if you're anywhere in the auditorium, the sound is the same wherever you are. So it's not like panning hard left and hard right. But I've only had the demo on it, and it sounded great, but I haven't used it in anger, so I don't know how good it would be in some of these barns that we play in.
Oh, cool.
So moving on to your involvement, and I think we met. I think it's about 3 years ago, something like that. It might even be longer than that. Could even before. I don't know. And I remember you visiting, and we had a chat, and you were very gracious enough to invite me down to rehearsals. And we had a look, and I've got some pictures of that actually. If you've got that up, Dan.
Have you?
Yeah,
if
you remember this, you remember that?
Oh, this is where is that?
It's Kato.
Oh, right, okay.
Kato and
that's very early days.
Yeah, and you can see on the picture of the console there, it's a little different actually, and the layout was a bit different, and you didn't like that detail area on the right hand side, amongst others. So we modified that a little bit. Bit,
yeah, I see that.
Yeah,
I had 2 desks, didn't I?
It's moving. Yeah, that actually we've skipped ahead a little bit there because we were gonna play a little video, but that's Florida.
Okay, that's
that's his first gig.
Death by fire from that one, isn't it?
Well, I wanted to mention that
by fire.
Because from there, I think it might skip ahead there, mate. But
should we try the video?
Yeah, let's try the videos because it's really interesting. Because from doing the rehearsals, we came to a few rehearsals with you, and then again you said, "Oh, well, you trusted me," and said, "Let's use it on a gig."
I've got 721.
The one with the in the field, which is pretty cool.
I'm not sure I can preview that. Just let me know.
It is. We get them out of order. We mess it up. It's live, isn't it? That's what it's all about.
So that's not the build.
That's the gig. It's not that one.
That's a gig. Yeah.
Epic fail. So from there, obviously Rick said come down, and we had this huge process of me going, oh, it's not ready, till eventually, we got to this point here, and this was the first time we had two consoles because we were terrified, obviously, that one would go down during the show, and that was its first occasion, and this was 5 o'clock in the morning, I think it was, or something like that.
Oh, you would have seen me there for sure.
No, you were. No, mate. Eating breakfast somewhere, I think. But no, it was an early sound check because all the drum risers had been built incorrectly, and they had to be redone. And by the time you got there, because it wasn't much later when you arrived, nothing was ready, and so you didn't get a sound check, which was like 2 minutes.
Oh yes, I remember. And I basically had to do a complete gig on the fly.
Yeah.
Yes, so, it was. It was a bit of a brave move for me, I'm sure.
It was. So if we want to close that over, I mean, it's only obviously two consoles coming in, but it was a very interesting, journey for us all from the first rehearsal all the way through to that point there, and then to the gig. If that's okay to show that, I hope you don't mind that.
Yeah,
next video, mate. And
the gig.
Yeah, the gig's the very, very first gig for HD, and we as I say, we were all terrified because I didn't. It was the tour manager was saying, "Is it going to be okay? Is it going to be okay?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. It'll be okay."
Yeah.
But
That doesn't sound too bad, actually, Pete.
It's not too bad at all, mate.
I don't remember it sounding as good as that.
So I don't know what to say. Anyway, so we can maybe pause that.
I thought that was meant to be a bit of a disaster, that one, but that didn't sound too bad.
Well, I'll be very, very harsh with yourself, I feel. But I don't know. It was just an amazing experience to get to that point, and you were so cool as well. I mean, I know so many sound engineers are obviously.
I knew it was a big step to take because I'd had the Yamaha out with me, and I'd had that out for a year and a half, and it was dialed in, and it was rock solid. So for me to make a massive change, but I wanted to do it. I've always been a Midas fan. Going back to my Santana days, that's when I first had it was a Pro 40, Pete. I think was the name, and that was like the one with that patch bay on the side, and it was a 32 into 16. I think you could do. Weighed an absolute ton, but it sounded amazing. And I kind of think, ever since those days, and it was leaps ahead of everything else sounding wise in those days, because all you had then was like a sort of, remember the Ramser? The Ramser was a big Woodward desk, and you had Soundcraft's 800Bs, and the only other one that was, I think it was a Series 1, was it? That was the only one that was everyone wanted to use because it had full 4-band parametric on the ins and the outputs. But this Pro 40 was an amazing sounding desk. That's how I got the gig with Santana, because it sounded that good.
You're telling me a story of it. I mean, about in particular because you were monitors, weren't you, on Santana?
I did monitors. Yeah, I started. I think like most people, you start out on your stage and doing monitors, and I think doing monitors is a much harder job than what front of house does. Different type of politics that you have at front of house, and these days it's a tougher job because you can have 12 musicians on stage and they all want stereo mixes. That's 24. That's 12 of what I do, and they all want to be different, and there'd be cues as well. I've just got a left and right now, but I do. My hat's off to monitor guys. It's a harder job, I think.
But it's about again the relationships, and I know you had a good way of translating what Mr. Santana
Carlos.
wanted. Yeah, Carlos.
Carlos. Yeah, no, he. Well, like a few musicians, they all speak in, because it's like how Carlos would say, "I want my guitar to sound like red wine," and you'd go, "Well, what kind of red wine? Like light and fruity Beaujolais or a Burgundy?" He goes, "No, man, like claret," And you go, "Okay." So in my head, that'd be like a deep, rich sort of sound that he was after, But he wouldn't know what the frequencies were or how you got it. And there's a few people who sort of paint their picture like that of how they want it to sound like,
Yeah, I think you can make a mint over that. Do a book translating the musicians' vocabulary.
Yeah, he came over to me once. I was on the desk because in those days you could still smoke in the arena, and I used to smoke those days. And the gig was a 4-hour show. If he was having a good time, it was 4 hours. So with no support band, we'd open the doors at, I think it was like 6:45, and he'd start at 7, and we'd go on till 11. And it was just such an intense thing. I mean, it was 4-hour show with one artist. That's kind of sort of unheard of. And you could just see the cigarette butts that I had around me. It's like, I look back at it, it's horrible. But he'd come over. He said one thing. He said to me, "Hey man, how's your sex life?" I thought I have no idea what that meant. Apparently, that was a compliment. But I think to this day I'm still the third longest lasting monitor engineer, because I used to have like a revolving. My luggage tag was Future X Monitor Engineer, because they had a revolving door of people. So I'm quite happy that I lasted so long. I used to make it sound like his living room, apparently.
Well, it's obviously without naming names, there's several positions like that in the industry, isn't there? Where it's certainly a limited lifespan for the monitor engineer, but we shouldn't.
Yeah, I think sometimes your face fits, sometimes it doesn't. And some artists can be extremely difficult, shall we say? Not mentioning any people, but it's just a challenge for sure.
The flip side to that, then, who's the nicest artist on the planet you've worked with?
I think, I don't know. Everyone I've seen to have worked for, they've all. I wouldn't say that anyone have I could go, "Oh, he's an absolute," or "She's an absolute." I don't know. Every tour I've ever done in a pretty range in music, I think I've enjoyed every single one. I can't sort of, maybe in the heat of the moment you might be frustrated with because your person's not giving you what you need sometimes in a crap room. But as for my favourite, I don't know. If Peter Gabriel's, he's quite amazing, because he's quite sort of theatrical, and I mean I've done 2 tours with him, and they're both amazing. And he's quite a sort of experimental, shall we say? So if he'd never take no for an answer. So he would always push stuff right to the very limit, especially for sort of production and the actual show.
Because looking at documentaries of that, I mean, I'm a bit of a fan, but I get the impression he's tied up these days with a lot of the, sort of the business side of things, and not so much sound checks and things like that. Did he have much time to really hone in on his sound and stuff?
He always would sound check. Pretty much we would sound check. I mean, on the 2 tours I did, he was always, but he was also more into, we had so many props and, theatrical bits that were happening. It was like a sort of Cirque du Soleil sort of stuff that would happen. So he would always check that as well with the sound check.
Awesome.
So moving back to obviously your involvement, One of the things that was so exciting from my perspective, with obviously getting to know you, which was great. But was when you moaned about something, or you went, oh, I'd like this or I'd like that, was the chance to come back and go, here, we've done this for you, and
you did,
and we did, and it was almost like this really great excitement, because
my favourite bit, Pete, is what you did for me is the DFA button. I've been wanting a desk on that for years, and you did it for me.
Can we get that on the screen there, Daniel, please?
I'll work on it. In the background.
And then you took it to the next level, and we got sparkle, we got try this, try that. I just think it's fantastic, because the amount of times you say that to your artists when he comes over, it's more for monitors, and you would just look them in the eye and you pretend to do something, and it was more about confidence. You go, try this, and they go, oh, that's better. And you haven't really done anything. It's just more like a sort of psychological, pampering, just to ease them, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, but
but now you've actually got it on the desk.
Yeah, we took it too far, obviously, but yeah, it was fun. It was Greg actually that did take it too far, to be fair. But here we go. We might be able to see it in action here and have a look at some of the features we've got. But yeah, doing all those features for you, whether it was that or the one-shot pot, which I think was
the one-shot pot is great, and that's the whole beauty of being involved with that desk right from the beginning, because it was we've involved it, and I'm sure you're getting loads of feedback from other people, and it will continually evolve. People want this, people want that, and that, or wouldn't this be a good idea? And at the end of the day, it's just a workflow, isn't it, for what people want to use? What's your easiest way of making it work for you?
Yeah, and again, targeting, because you're certainly involved in the targeting of the effects and which effects we should add.
Well, I see that there's the VS3 now, isn't there? But I haven't. That's launched now, isn't it, Pete? I believe.
Yeah, VSS3's in there now. So obviously that frees up quite a bit of a DSP for from compared to the 4. So. What
doesn't look like it's happening.
Okay.
Sorry, mate.
But fundamentally, the feature is on the console. You get a range of. You can assign a whole bunch of buttons, and there's DFA, which is don't do anything.
That's fuck all. And it doesn't do anything. But you can twiddle the knob and say to the artist, "Come and have a look at this. What I'm doing for you." And
it's got a scale as well.
And whether they would get it, I don't know. But
yeah, so we've got that. We've got sparkle and pop and color.
Try this, try that.
Try this, try that. Spot talent. There's a talent button as well.
The talent button is my favourite. What happened tonight? Why does it sound so good? Well, I found the talent button on the desk. Yeah. It's always my favourite.
Yeah,
which normally goes straight over artists' head, and they don't get that joke.
Yeah. But we did that. Obviously, we did the we got the VSS3, and the 2290 is almost on the way. Actually,
I was
chatting with the team today, so hopefully that'll be in there relatively soon. So I think that's quite an exciting one, actually, because it's the best
delay out there. What's the I forgot what I was going to say there, Pete. Now, what's that with the lakes? How far away is the lakes?
Yeah, it's just there's just a bit of front end work. The algorithm's done, so it should be in reasonably soon. So we've got working prototypes of it. So I would say another couple of versions, and we'll be there and about with that. So it's very exciting, because the range of effects we've got, and we've got obviously our dynamics coming as well, which is a huge number of dynamics, which is 90.
That's 96. Not going to take up any DSP, is it? That's just on the channel, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd be 96 multi-band, 4-band. Basically, it's just like a C4 or an F4, because it's got mid-high processing as well, actually. Great little thing, because that was Moscow. But yeah, we've got got some of the effects there, and we've got the multi-band comps that'll be coming later. So some great bits of kit coming soon, and some great effects coming soon. Did you? I assume you've installed, because you obviously you've got one of the first consoles.
Yeah.
I assume you've installed 1.3, I think it is now.
Yeah, but I haven't been playing. The only thing that I saw, I haven't swapped over, Pete, to be honest, the VS3s, because I've got sort of my Jamiroquai multi-tracks here, and I've got some Roisin Murphy multi-tracks, so I've been sort of playing with them really, but I haven't sort of swapped out my VS4s to the VS3s. And there's also like a rotary, like a rotary speaker effect, but I can't see what I would maybe, in my audio world, would use that on, perhaps. But
it's all about creative tools, Rick.
yeah. I certainly need them on some jobs. Yeah.
You never know when you're going to need it, a rotary speaker.
Yes. Will it help me polish a turd?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Will it help me polish a turd? You know, the other thing, you can't polish a turd, but
you can roll it in glitter.
You can, yes.
So how's go on, sorry.
I was going to say, big surprise was adding a guitar amplifier in there.
Why was it so much of a surprise? I mean, you know, it's
just because it wasn't within the Pro Series. I wasn't expecting it to come in. I know there's a lot of new things, but as opposed to an effect, it's I don't know. Just
there was a bit. I think it's part of the same algorithm that went in the multi-band distortion, because there's a speaker there's a speaker emulator in that in Pro Series. But there's if you like a signal chain, there's a bit of a guitar amp going in there as well.
What is the amp then, Pete? Is it just like you can select some more like a distortion? Is it?
Yeah, it's a rack amp.
Right.
So I think it's like
I have a picture of it actually. Hang on.
Yeah.
There we go.
But it's modelled on a thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe I'll have a play with that.
Yeah. Well, it's good for adding a bit of dirt, you know. But there's obviously the distressor as well, which actually I don't think you have played with, which is pretty cool. So I mean,
no, I don't think I've played with that one yet.
Have you had to play with that, Dan, yet?
Yes, I have. I've tried it on drums.
Pulling your face.
Don't like it.
Oh, okay.
I like it. I like it on vocals though.
Right, okay.
Like it on vocals. Yeah, I'm probably more used to using it on smashing like quiet vocals, just getting the volume up a little bit. I find it useful for that. But yeah, just because there's so many instances, normally I'm just used to one outboard rack or couple, so I've had to just use it on a vocal. So I've not really played around with it extensively, to check it out.
Cool for cats. How's so? I mean, loads of questions for you.
Yeah.
Well, obviously that's just our start for 10, isn't it? Just having a jam chat.
What's my favourite fish? It's a goldfish.
Is it? I thought it was cod.
I didn't know what you were going to ask me, Pete. Go on. Far away.
Before Pete does, what I will say on the to everyone out there, if you swipe your screen to the right, you can actually access the message section. If you want to throw any questions into Rick, just throw them in, and I'll put them into the pot.
Yeah. What was it like with Saxon? What was it like touring with Saxon?
I didn't tour with Saxon.
You did? I'm sure you did.
No, I did. Wasp.
That was it.
Wasp.
Ricky Blackie Lawless. What was it?
Blackie Lawless. John E. Rod was the bass player. Steve Riley was the drummer, and John Too Tall Holmes was the guitarist.
I saw them at Donington as support for Bon Jovi.
I mean, Spinal Tap. Seriously, they must have come to a Wasp show because it was Spinal Tap. It was hilarious. But they were playing massive shows. Yeah, no, it was brilliant. But it was so funny. we used to have to carry around a sort of one of these mobile gyms, you know, and it was fucking pain in the arse for everybody because it was like weights and all these bits, and you had to put it together in the dressing room. This poor drum tech, or no, poor keyboard tech, and they never used it. But it always had to be up. If it wasn't up in the dressing room, they would kick off royally. So that was, I thought was quite funny. But yeah, we used to have stage blood, and Blackie would drink out of a skull, and it was just bizarre. I mean, the first gig, we went to Scandinavia, and you'd get sort of at the end of the night, you'd be coiling your cables away, and you'd go, there'd be bits of liver and you know, raw meat over the whole stage. So it was, people used to come along and throw stuff on the stage. It was part of what they wanted, the show. So they'd get like liver. We even had a reindeer's hoof thrown up on the stage. It was, yeah, most bizarre. Dildo would be thrown up on the stage. It was just very strange. Yeah.
Not great. I was talking to Warren actually.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I was talking to Warren actually, and he was telling me a story about when you guys were in, I think it was Colombia, and you ended up with an armed escort with a guy with a 50 cal who basically in the bottom of the stadium at the doors just pointed at the stores the entire way through the gig. I mean, what was your take on that? That must have been terrifying.
Well, it's just it was maybe a bit over the top, but it is the
50 a little bit.
But they were serious, you know. I mean, Jay definitely likes his security, and there is the sort of kidnap city and central there. So we've always had armed guards and like a cavalcade, and you'd have like a front and rear rider. Mainly for him, the band, they would just like travel normal, but yeah. Out there, they've all got like balaclavas on, and they're all, you know, soldiers. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't use it, but I'm sure if they had to, they would have done. Yeah, you never know when you're going to get kidnapped in Mexico.
No, well, or get a dildo thrown at you on stage.
Yeah, well, you weren't in Mexico. This was Scandinavia. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because sorry, Dan.
Oh, no, it's all right. Go on, push up.
I was just going. My memory of them was it was at Donington. It was Wasp, Anthrax, Metallica, Dio, because Ronnie James Dio was going, and Bon Jovi.
Right, for the lineup. Lots of big hair there. Yeah,
a lot of big hair there. Yeah, I think that was a Turbo Sound gig actually, which is interesting. But I remember that, and Blackie Lawless and Johnny Rod on stage, and yeah, the skull and you were probably mixing it. It was probably you.
When I worked for Wasp, I was a drum tech for them. So this is I was only about when I started working. I think my first gig I did was a band called UFO, and I was a drum tech for UFO. I think I was about 20, and then Wasp I was about 21, I think. But I didn't really, because I was a drummer in a band, I didn't really want to be a drum tech. I wanted to be, you know, audio was my passion. I wanted to do that. So as soon as audio came along, I stopped doing any drum teching. But it was great to go out and do it, you know. Yeah, they were definitely Spinal Tap Wasp.
Yeah, so somebody there's a thing here, and I was going to ask you about this because I was going to ask you about your favourite effects, but I could probably have a crack at that for you. But what would be your favourite effect? But somebody here, and it's quite a few people asking for the 5045 We Know Expander. It's the Source Expander by Rupert Neve. And we are going to have a crack at that actually, which is going to be interesting. But what would be your if you're on a desert island and you had to take 3 bits of outboard, what would you take?
I'd take a TC 2290
Yeah. Okay.
An H3000 DSE.
Yeah.
And a dildo.
purely for my own pleasure to do it. No, and I'm just trying to remember the name of the reverb unit. I can't remember the name. No, it's gone from me. Anyway, it would be this reverb unit. It was quite old. RMX 16. Yeah, so those 3 bits of kit. Yeah. But the RMX 16, I used to take one out with me live in the early days, but they're just so unreliable. You can't use them. And of course now with digital desks, you know, the reverbs on board are just as good as that. Maybe not quite as grainy perhaps, but that's it. And an H3000, I mean, I still haven't come across anyone that's emulated it as good as the actual bit of hardware kit. They come close.
It's a plug-in. You could get Eventide do a
yeah,
plug-in.
but it's still not the same as the analog, which sort of sweeps across, whereas the digital seems to be just like, you know, a bit harder and squarer. Interesting.
So it's
that whole to my ears anyway.
Interesting, Pete, that you on the. I think it's on the inserts, but you want to talk about maybe the return B for that very same said reason.
The alternate return. Yeah, that was a redundant return for which is again another interesting little thing that was requested by Warren. So we could return if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So basically, if it fails over, you can swap over to alternate returns on which is again another take on the alternate input, which we've yet to add. But yeah, it's a pretty fun thing actually. That
just useful for those. Yeah, if you do need to use these older, you know, classic sounding outboard, and you happen to have 2 of them, you want to have one as a backup. It's easily you can switch easily.
Because H3000 isn't the most reliable bit of gear, is it?
No. But you know, I'm trying to get away from having outboard gear. I just want to use stuff on the desk because it's easier, isn't it? You know, so then you don't even have to take a little rack with you. You just turn up with your stick or email your show file if you're not carrying your desk. And then you haven't got to worry about any external stuff. That's what I try and do these days.
In terms of the setup and everything, there was a question here from Dennis. He says, "What is there a difference in approach of using the HD compared to when you were mixing like Pro Series, or in terms of how you set the console up or anything like that?"
For me, it's a bit more user friendly than I thought with the XL8 and the Pro Series.
In what way?
I don't know. Maybe I've just got my head around it. I always used to struggle patching with the Pro and the XL8 a bit because I don't know. I couldn't quite get my head around it. I found the Yamaha patch system, and I sort of had the PM5, and I found that very user friendly. But I find that now with the HD, it's not way for me anyway. But as for touchscreen's nice, and the workflow and being able to pin your channels, so they don't move when you change scenes. So you've got like 2 or 3 that you can have wherever you want to select them. That's a great idea.
And in fact, you pin the because again, it's a feature that was added. I think it was yourself, where you can pin the send, which you use a lot on. Well, I just use that so I normally pin my vocal and my delay send or return on there, depending on
And for those, I mean, I know it's sort of self-explanatory, but just for those who are completely new to HD, it's ultimately regardless of how the board is laid out, you may have inputs, outputs, whatever it is you're looking at. You could be in a completely different workflow, but you can always go back to your pin layer and say, I want that to always be my vocal, and as Rick said, effect sends or things like that, and just call them up. And then I think we've even got a macro now, haven't we, Pete, where you can turn all your pin channels on and all off as well. So
pin layer,
and they're super quick. It's not just a case to pin and say I want that channel. You can use the rotary dial to find what you need, and it's bloody quick. Yeah, it's cool. It's my favourite feature on the console, actually.
It is pretty good, and having different pin layers, which is something we're looking at, or I'd like us to look at. So you can have the idea of calling things back, and then overlay them on your if you like, what would be your pop groups. So, in one particular song, you might have a couple of things that were pertinent to you, and then in other ones you might have a setup and then overlay it with another pin layer. Well, that's the whole thing with HD, is that flexibility of approach to make it work for you, really, which is hopefully it hit it for you, Rick.
Well, it has,
which is pretty cool. So it's an interesting question, because we had a lot of interest last week in microphones. So having been in the studio engineer, I think we can call you that, and 9 million albums, it's not bad.
8.3 or something, I think
it was a couple, didn't you? And you did do all the demos, I think, for the later records. Underplaying yourself there a little bit, but what microphones do you use, and do you think the studio affected that?
Which microphones I use? What, live or?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm an officer. I know you. Well, I've seen what you use, but last week Chris was using mixtures of SE and various other things. What's your sort of preferred stuff? What do you find works? I don't know, on Tom's.
It's mainly the bog standard, the Shores. You can't beat a SM57 and an SM58, and they're tried and tested and robust, and you've always got one. And whether you're carrying microphones with you or you end up working in a club that's got but they'll always have a 57 or a 58. So I kind of think, and you can use them on anything, and there's variations like the 56A, the beaters, but to be honest, that's my sort of, I'm kind of, grew up on Shores, and I still use them, and I used them in the studio as well. You still can't beat a 57 on a recorded snare. I would probably use KM84s, but the trouble is they're really quite an expensive mic to put on Toms, and as soon as a drummer twats it, the mic's gone, and you end up the big bill, for the record, for the band and the PA company. So whereas those like 98s, they're a bit more inexpensive and they sound great. So I kind of beat 52 in the kick drum's my favourite. I've tried RE20s, but I always come back to them. So I don't think you can, SM98s, 56, Beta 58s on vocals. You can't go wrong.
I'm pretty sure you're not using 58s on your overheads.
No, not on my overheads. No, you've got to have 414 is what I tend to use on those. I mean, I've tried the SM81s, but the AKG 414s are and I'd use them in the studio as well. And they're not as likely to get hit by your drummer. So you can afford to have a bit more expensive microphones because it's out of the reach of his stick.
Okay. Here's something, because I was chatting. It's one of my favourite topics, but you exercise quite a lot on tour, don't you?
Exercise? I try to. Yeah. You've got to keep fit. We're not getting any younger, and it's a pretty unhealthy lifestyle, isn't it? Every night's every night's a Friday night, isn't it? When you're on tour, if you want it to be, So I kind of, as I've got older, and I had a few health issues, I just thought, I'd get, I'd try and keep fit, do a lot of walking, a bit of cycling. Okay, if there's a gym, I go to a gym, then I don't feel so guilty if I have a few beers,
A few beers, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting thing, the way that how does if you were advising, let's imagine it's your son, or your daughter, and they were saying, right, Dad, I'm going to go on tour, knowing full well how that black hole sucks you into that dark place. What would your advice to them be for because there may be some young touring engineers
don't
listening
do it.
here.
No, I don't. I would just, if you really want to go do it, follow your dreams, really. I mean, I think most people in the music industry who are either crew or musicians it's a hobby, and we end up making a living out of it. And I don't know anybody we all have a passion for whether it be sound, lights, or whatever you're doing. But I think we're quite lucky in our industry that most people who get into it are it's a hobby, and then if it becomes your job, then great, because then as I say, every gig I've ever done, I've never hated a gig. I think that if I ever got to that point, it'd be like time to stop.
Taking it away from
go on.
Taking it away from family, though, say for example,
exactly. It's definitely, if you've got family and kids, it is quite hard. There's quite a lot of relationships that fall away because when I was younger, I would be away working for 10, 11 months of a year. So
wow.
It was a lot and touring then was you could be away. You could do a UK tour for 5 weeks. I mean, now with internet and Facebooks and all your media, but it's a different way of promoting bands. So you don't have to go out on so much now.
What about what about for new engineers, engineers who are aspiring to kind of get to the level that you're mixing at? I mean, is there any advice you could perhaps offer them in terms of
do whatever you can, always do a gig if you can work. I mean, I was very lucky that I started out and we used to do loads of little club gigs. There's still club gigs out there, well, when we finally get back to work, and most of my first few years I was mixing on little tiny 2K rigs. Definitely get into your DAWs and play with stuff at home, and experiment, because everybody does it differently. How I get a sound is completely different to someone else, but we all end up with a good result. I just think get hands on and do as much as you can and follow your dream. Really, that would be my advice.
Good answer.
What's the? I mean, I almost don't know how you would answer this. What's the craziest thing that's happened to you whilst you're on tour?
The craziest?
Yeah, I mean, you could probably have a top 50, couldn't you? But
I've probably got quite a few. The craziest thing was, I don't know. Record companies used to have lots of money, and I think the craziest thing was, Jay used to outsell Madonna like 3-1 in Japan, and the record company was so he needed to go and do this TV show in Japan, and we were on tour, and the only way we could get there was a private jet because it fitted in. So we had a private jet all the way from Dublin Tokyo with 12 of us on there for a TV mime. So it was a live vocal to playback, and they didn't want to take. The guitarist didn't want to go for some reason, so he said, "Well, you be the guitarist, Rick." So I was the guitarist for this TV show, and there was our monitor guy was a guy called Chris Barton. He was my guitar tech. So yeah, I let all my hair down and was, just doing a lot of, the Who air guitar. It's very funny. Complete mime, but that's how. And I think the plane cost about 110 grand to get us there.
Wow.
I mean, you'd never have that now. I mean, because record companies don't have the money, So that's probably
it's
one of them.
You haven't got footage of that.
I think there is some footage somewhere. Yeah, because it was a TV show, so I don't know where it is. I'm sure it's around. Or maybe I should try and get a copy of it.
Yeah, I think it would be good.
That's I can't think of any. I mean, it's many. That's probably the strangest. Yeah.
So here's another one, and it's just kind of two parts to it. What would be your dream band to mix if there's a band you've not touched? And someone was saying Fleetwood Mac recently to me, but if you could mix any band at all. Oh,
I'd love to mix AC/DC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Pav. Yeah, no, I'd love to go Pav. If you don't want to do that band, no, I'd love to do them. Yeah. I mean, it'd be just like fade us up, and I don't think it's much sort of to them because they probably mix themselves. But yeah, no, I've got to. I've got it.
You've got to hang on. It's pretty. No, it's a pretty extreme gig, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of Angus in that, and he's hanging on for
think they're pretty loud.
Bit.
I'm sure they're pretty loud on stage, and you have to balance what's coming out of the PA and as to what you're coming off stage. But I can't think of any others, to be honest.
AC/DC is a good answer.
Yeah.
Cool for cats. All right. Okay. Well, we've been a bit over an hour. It seems like about 5 minutes for me, but I love talking to you. So, maybe if we've got any final questions from some of the guys that are on. Daniel, is there anything?
No, I think we've answered most of them. Let's just see.
Someone says about HD Sonics.
HD Sonics.
Yeah.
What do they mean?
How does it sound?
It sounds great. It sounds like I mean, Midas has always sounded extremely musical, and it's the best preamps for getting a drum sound, for sure.
How does it sound? How does it sound compared to? I mean, because obviously you've used other consoles, the manufacturers.
Other consoles, yeah. No, I mean, they're all. I think it's probably the warmest sounding console out there, Pete. To be honest, I mean, the top end ones of all the manufacturers, though, they're all quite, reasonable. But for me, that's just got an inherent. It's more musical. It's the most musical sounding preamps, I think, out of all of them. And not mentioning any others, but it's a great sounding desk.
There's one here for you, Pete. Any info on I/O boxes? New I/O boxes.
New I/O boxes. We are working on something, and it's a bit of a new concept. I like to think that we're without giving too much away, we're gonna try and do what we did with HD with I/O boxes. So I'm really excited about that. Actually, it's something I've been wanting to do for quite a while now. So I think you and I have discussed it, Rick, actually. But yeah, I/O boxes. We're gonna mess with it. We're gonna play with it quite a lot. Hopefully, do something really exciting.
Cool.
AVB Milan. Yeah, we were working on that as well. We're looking into that. So at the moment, we actually had a layout of a board. So it's just time. Was there anything you could do with the HD is there anything? Here's one for you, Rick. Is there anything you could do with the HD that enhanced your tour sound as compared to what you would have had with the other consoles?
Anything that the HD does that enhances. Only the sonic side of it, the preamps. You know, it's a richer sound. It's got all the stuff that I wanted, which was the TC electronic, the reverb. That's the only reason why I went with it, is because it enhanced my sound, and I've always had a good sound with Jamiroquai. So this is taking it to the next level.
Cool.
Got Dante connectivity. I mean, that's now we've got 2 CM1 slots on the back. You can just add your Dante card in there, or 2, in fact.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
yes is the answer to that.
We are looking for high channel count Dante as well.
Cool.
So,
what else is going to go in those slots, Pete? What else can they go in those slots? Anything?
Well, yeah. I mean, there is a bandwidth limitation going into the actual card itself, which restricts it a teeny bit. But I mean, really, if I was just being a guessing man, not knowing what was coming, I'd say Dante, AVB, Waves card. All those are certainly possibilities. Right. I'd like to see us make something of
what's the AVB? Sorry, what's the AVB?
Yeah, well, it's used by Mayer and L Acoustics, amongst others, to basically stream stuff up to the stage now.
Okay.
A bit of a standard.
Right.
Yeah, Clang card. Can't imagine that they would. Yeah, that might happen. But we might do head transforms though, which is the same thing. Controversial. Sure, Dante integration. Not sure what I can say about that. I think that says it all for Shure integration and Sennheiser integration. I think that says it all.
What's that for you, for IEMs?
Yeah, so you can get the if we were to do it, you would have basically the in-ears or the wireless mics integrated into the console, so you could see battery levels or control the gain and so forth.
All right.
It would definitely be a really, really cool feature to have, and it would be certainly incredibly high up on my priority list. Hint, hint. HC would be good for recording as well. That would be integration with ELISA. Yeah, I've been talking to those guys about it as well. So that's something we'd love to do.
Yeah,
which should be interesting for you, I think, Rick, because you're.
Well, I went for the demo, and I think the only one they've got it with at the moment is Digico, isn't it? I think they've got it integrated into their desk.
Yeah,
but I was. I mean, it sounded amazing. I mean, it's just like you should go, Pete, and check it out.
Yeah, I've been there? I have been a few times. Yeah, it's great product. Yeah. Yeah. But both of them, that and the D&B one, both good. How about the interactions with Lake and measurement software? Well, we are doing the meter EQ fundamentally, or a very, very close approximation to a meter EQ, which I think is interesting to you, Rick. Definitely people use them on vocals sometimes, so that's definitely
on the what? Sorry, they used
they use Lake or LM44s on vocals,
right?
Quite a bit for brick wall and stuff fundamentally, I think. But I know quite a few people who do that. In terms of measurement, it'd be really nice because we've obviously got the TC stuff, so we could do a lot of the loudness stuff as well, which obviously, as you know, legally That would be a really, really cool thing, especially if you were going to mix AC/DC. You'd want to you'd want to make sure you were compliant, should we say?
Yeah.
I think you'd agree with that. Engineers should use their ears more than their eyes.
Well, exactly. I mean, I'm a big fan. I mean, it's all very well. You look at these lovely sort of, graphics that appear on your screen and your desk, but fundamentally, it's these two bits of kit in between, up beside your head. I think a lot of people look at when they're EQing, right? Well, don't look. Just do what feels like, and don't worry what it looks like on the graph. What sounds good is what it's all about. So use your ears. I mean, I'm a big fan of that. Sometimes you can even cover up your screen, so you know. I definitely would agree with that.
I mean, that used to be a thing for. I remember, and I probably can say it, but it was when we first did XL8. The actual original EQ for XL4, I think it was actually plus minus 16, not plus minus 12. But we did it plus minus 12, and I think the original was printed out as on the silk screen as plus minus 12. And people used to say that you don't have to do much with it for it to. I'm pretty sure it was the XL4, and then I remember having to change it on the XL8, and that was kind of very interesting because that psychological effect does change the way people mix. They all have having too much, which is what you're saying, which is use your ears,
Yeah.
Does the name do justice to an enigmatic analog console? Yes, I feel it does. I mean, for me, is if I look at the Heritage 3K or the Heritage line, an amazing successful pieces of gear, and I would only dream to be as successful with this particular product, but I think it's ambitious, and I think it was an ambitious product with its integration of AI and cloud and everything else. So it certainly tries its best, should we say?
Just need some gigs, Pete, so we can get out and people can try it.
Need some gigs, mate. Need some more.
Yeah.
It's what PLM and LM control through the lake controller into the desk possible in the future. I'll have a think about that one. Not sure. Would you use Lake, Rick, integrated into the console?
It was more Warren really, because he would use it for his monitor outputs, But I would. I've always used graphics though. Really, I'm not sort of. I don't know what it is. I just parametric. I would give it a go. I'm not sure how many points can you have on the Lake. Is it 12 or?
I think on the one we've got, we've got 10.
Right.
Like that.
But
I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm sure I would have a go. But if it was the Clark Technic 32 band, I'd stick one of them over it if I need something.
Where could I get a demo? Obviously, it's difficult at the moment. We're looking at doing production very, very, very short time. We was talking about that yesterday. Third-party plugin. I mentioned potentially could be a wasteguard. Any other versions of the console? Well, yes, there aren't versions of the console. Maybe check the rumours on the internet. It's for travellers as well, definitely. Does Rick own an HD96?
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. There you go.
Yeah, and it's great. It's in my garage at the moment. It's, with some multi-tracks and
Perfect.
Needs to go out and do some gigs.
Is the cloud dot? Go on, you do that one.
Is the M Cloud supposed to be publicly available? Coming soon.
You can create an account.
I didn't think that was open to the public yet, so you know better than I.
Well, it's
I thought it was internal.
No, it's on the mega interweb.
Okay.
Okay, cool for cats then. I think I think we've gone over a bit again. I don't know what to say. Thank you very much, Rick. It's lovely to talk to you, mate.
Thanks for having me, and onwards and upwards, really. So hopefully once we get a vaccine or something, we can start having some gigs again. But I'm not sure what's going to happen there. We wait and see.
Well, wish you all the best, Rick.
All the best, mate. Okay. And take care of yourself. Speak to you soon.
Yeah. All right, mate.
Thank you.
I'll speak soon. Thanks very much, and I hope it was anyone who listening enjoyed it.
We had almost everybody that came on at the start stayed on, so that was lovely for me. That says it all. So
okay, all right, cool.
Thank you everybody else for staying.
Okay, don't forget the boogie and up the pinks. I see you later. Right.
Don't forget next week, guys, for Russell Tight. Cheers.
Jangan lupa panteng terus semua video-video saya dan ingat like and subscribe ya. Terima kasih.